Alright, we had a Shenandoah National Park. I am Jared Kern.
I'm Emily Specht. And I'm Tyler Sims.
Shenandoah National Park is a refuge of nature. 200,000 acres of protected land offer a haven for tens of thousands of living creatures, from tiny insects to black bears. Straddling the Appalachian Mountains, the park is dominated by hardwood forests and supports a wide variety of plant life. Shenandoah's splendor is rivaled only by its vibrant fall colors. There's nothing quite like a drive through brilliant splashes of reds and yellows. The park itself was carved from private land. Historically, hundreds of families call these mountains home, and if you look carefully, you can find evidence of these mountain residents.
I hope you enjoyed the nice little virtual tour of the Shenandoah National Park. A little bit of the location is in Northwest Virginia, as you can see on the U.S. map where Virginia is, and also the yellow dot signifies where the actual park is. And a little bit of the history. For at least 10,000 years, people had lived in the Blue Mountain Ridge Mountains, which is one of the specific mountains in the Shenandoah National Park. Shenandoah was authorized in 1926 and fully established December 26, 1935. And Congress was who actually authorized the establishment. President Franklin D. Roosevelt initiated that the park return to its natural state, and now over 95% of the park is covered by forests with about 100 species of trees. And why exactly was it made? It was set aside to protect specific values of 20-million-year-old slice of the Jurassic Park period deposits. It includes some of the earliest dinosaurs in the fossil record. Its size and visitation, its total acreage is 196,466, and highest visitation is during fall and summer months, like the picture is seen below. A little bit off the geology. These mountains form from a distinct highland rise to elevations above 4,000 feet. Some of the rocks exposed in the park date to over 1 billion years in age, making them the oldest in Virginia. They cover a sequence of metamorphosed Neoproterozoic, which is 570 million years old. Volcanic rocks at 552 million years old, Cambrian clastic rocks at 520 million years old, and bedrock in the park includes Greenville age granite basement risks at 1.2 billion years old. This is a diagram of the geologic and tectonic history, and the rocks and structures exposed in the national park formed in response to the tectonic process associated with opening of ocean basins and the collision of continents throughout the past 1.2 billion years. And this is a surfal deposit, and these include, they're formed by flowing water, gravity, high rainfall, freezing and thawing process on the slopes, and chemical weathering. And this is a diagram of the cross-section. And the Blue Ridge Mountain, which I mentioned earlier, was a specific mountain in the national park. This is the cross-section from that area. It's separate from the valley and the ridge rocks by a family-related low-angle thrust that placed the Mesoproterozoic basement and Neoproterozoic to Cambrian cover rocks in the Blue Ridge Mountain. And these are two pictures of where you can see exactly where the foliation is in the rocks. And in the first picture, it's granite and gneiss, and you can see the marked foliation. And the Arco sandstone is the rock in the second picture, and you can see the cross beds and the bedding.
When it comes to the Earth's history, about 600 million years ago, continental drift formed a broad and shallow depression from Alabama to Newfoundland. And over 300 million years, seas flooded, which began to form the Appalachian Mountains, which is the mountain formation that goes through Shenandoah. And prior to this new formation, the Appalachians resembled the Himalayas. So as the Appalachians developed throughout the years, they started to resemble what the Himalayas should have resembled. And there also was the 500-year rainstorm, which is why there's such beautiful scenery, and that is because of the wind, water, and frost wearing away at the Appalachian Mountains. So when you go and see what the mountains look like, it's due to the 500-year rainstorm. This began occurring for over 250 million years, and the shape of the mountains has been defined by the 500-year rainstorm, and that was in June of 1995. Another piece of Earth history, and as she said earlier, that FDR had a big part in this park. This is him visiting the Civilian Conservation Corps.
Okay, so some of the hazards in this park, the biggest one is rain. And rain has, there's a lot of potentials for flooding there, and it can change the entire face of the park. For example, also in the storm of the 1995, the 500-year rain, as he was talking about, it changed the entire face of Shenandoah. It created new waterfalls all throughout the park. It also moved boulders and sediment to reroute creek beds. The rivers covered trails so hikers couldn't hike, and the rivers covered everything. They expanded, and mountains also deteriorated. Another hazard would be landslides and mass wasting. From this rain also, there were whole mountains, the faces of them were ripped off, which created landslides, and giant boulders would fall off onto the roads and the trails. It also made it very dangerous to hike when this was happening. These are just some of the examples of Shenandoah's hazards. This one right here is the boulders falling onto the roads from the landslide. This is another picture up here of a landslide of a mountain. And this was one of the smaller rivers, and as you can see, it became quite large. Some of the threats are acid rain and air pollution. The acid rain can contaminate the water, which can kill a lot of species and just make it, and it can be dangerous for people to drink. It also erodes away the mountains and the different rock formations. There's also a big problem with air pollution because Shenandoah lays downwind from major companies that have industrial companies that produce a lot of pollution. So it just flows down. This is a picture of Shenandoah. Here on the left is a normal day when the wind isn't blowing, and then here on the right is when the industrial companies are producing a lot of smog, and it's blowing downwind to Shenandoah. So in conclusion, this is a really beautiful park with many different rock types and formations. It's constantly changing due to the weathering and mass wasting, so the face of this park looks different every time you look at it. And then pollution is the #1 hazard and threat to this park.
Thank you.
Go ahead if you have one. In terms of these hazards, which ones sort of relate back to the geology of the park, do you think?
I would think the landslides, because they can really change, the rocks falling from, the mountains eroding away and the rocks falling, which will make it obviously flatter. So,
Okay.
Good question.
Well, thank you. Spent all night thinking of it. Anyone else? Somebody's got to ask a question before we're done with these presentations. Thank you. What's that?
Thank you. What?